We're back, this time at Brands Hatch at the end of June. So this time we're racing with the CMMCS, just like we did at Mallory Park a few weeks back. And looking forward to this one. First time I'm going to be racing the Honda around Brands Hatch, so quite a big moment for me, my local track. One that I absolutely love driving and can't wait to get started here. So today I'm continuing on with the Nankang NSR1 tyres, which I found at Mallory weren't particularly quick, so I can't lie, was a bit nervous going into the qualifying session. Wasn't sure if I'd have the pace. Unfortunately for qualifying and race 1, this is the state of my GoPro, not particularly well set up from me here today. I fixed it before race 2, but we're going to stick to the driver facing cam for qualifying and race number 1. So qualifying here at Brands Hatch, as mentioned, I was a little bit nervous. I wasn't 100% sure how it was going to play out. It was a big grid of cars, 35 cars out there in qualifying, so pretty busy, and it was hard to keep up with how everyone was doing and where I was doing in terms of the overall pace. So let's have a ride on board here. This was my fastest lap. It was the penultimate lap of the session for myself before there was a red flag for a car off at Paddock Hill Bend. Wasn't a particularly good lap, as mentioned, on those Nankang NS2R tyres. I wasn't particularly happy. They weren't giving me the front grip at all, and around Mallory for some reason that wasn't as noticeable. Around Brands Hatch I was struggling so much. Maybe the tyre pressures weren't particularly set up how I wanted it to be, but a lot of understeer, probably the most I've experienced when racing. Now I know that they're a hard compounder and not particularly grippy tyre, but still I wasn't really feeling at my best here in qualifying. So today there were 5 people in my class TP. We have Ian and James Seal, we also had Justin Ross in his Clio, and we also had Andrew Stenning in his Fiesta as well. So the 3 Fiestas being run by Supertune, obviously the guys to go to in the south if you want to go racing in the Fiesta. Lots of good options there, but they were my 3 competitors alongside Justin Ross in his Clio. And I didn't do a particularly good lap in qualifying. I finished second within class, less than a tenth, or just over a tenth of a second behind Andrew, who I think was taking part in his first ever race, so really great job from him, and he would line up on the class pole. So here we are, as mentioned, with this camera for this race, because we didn't have a particularly good forward facing view, but we also have the exterior shots thanks to John. So I got a bad start here, and at first I was like, what's going on here? Is there something wrong with my car? But no, for some reason I hadn't noticed I'd gone from 2nd to 5th when exiting clearways and starting our rolling start for this race. So not ideal. Already lost 2 or 3 positions here, and now I think we've got Callum Perfect trying to look around the outside of us here, going to Druids, who initially gets past here but runs a bit deep, and then we go side by side exiting the corner. Now I have a bit more power than Callum, so I was hoping to get around the outside. You can see just at the end of this straight, managing to sweep around the outside of him there. He gave me space, I gave him space. We get through there cleanly, and then we had a superior run to Justin Ross in his Clio. We're quite similarly matched in terms of top speed, me and Justin, but I managed to get a much better exit and go past. Now going through clearways here, also diving up the inside of Dominic Ryan in his Fiesta as well. So quite a bold first lap, all things considered. A bit gutted I don't have that forward facing camera, but my mistake messing it up. So some lovely slow motion shots thanks to John, who was with us this weekend. I'll leave a link to his Instagram in the description of this video, so go and check out his Instagram. Lots of great content over there. He helps us out a lot, so massive thanks to him. So early on in this race, I'm trying to make my move for the class lead. There's Andrew in the number 68 black Fiesta, so he's our competition here for the class win. So we were doing quite well at Mallory Park. We managed to bag the class win in both races there. This time a little bit more competition, you could say. There's more cars in class, and the pace disparity is a lot closer here at Brands Hatch. So Andrew dives down the inside of me there, gets the position back. At this point we're battling, I'd say, around 20th place. There were a couple of early dropouts and we gained a few positions. I get back past on Andrew there to regain their class lead, so I was quite happy with that. I thought that was a decent move to get myself back past Andrew into the class lead, and you can see behind him Dominic Ryan in his Fiesta as well. So I thought I was doing a pretty good job early on here to put in a consistent lap times. They weren't especially quick. I was still lapping similar to where I was in quali, but they were consistent enough that I was able to pull away from Andrew, as mentioned, one of his first races. So he was obviously quick, but maybe the consistency wasn't quite there in the first race. But in the second race, which we'll get onto later, he was very quick. So that was going to be interesting to see who's going to come out on top here. So you can see there's a Ford Sierra Cosworth coming through from the back of the grid that hadn't qualified. I think that's Jeremy Sutton. He struggled in quali but managed to get into the race and started to really pick up the pace, and he would obviously get past us with relatively little hassle because of the extra speed in his car. So he would get past us and we were just trying to settle into a rhythm at this point. Then there were a few more casualties in the race. A few more drivers would retire, and unfortunately there would be a couple of incidents, I think, surrounding fluid on the track. So unfortunately for a few drivers, they would retire because of contact with either the wall or another driver, which was a big shame. And my sort of priority after getting past Andrew was to try and chase down Liam in the Saxo. He's doing a fantastic job in that car, and he's really putting in some impressive lap times. And you can see I was doing my best to try and keep up with him, but he was just sort of pulling away, especially once I was starting to get lapped with the BMWs, the Mitsubishis, the Vauxhall Monaro. Absolutely crazy stuff we get in CMMCS. But yeah, it was nice to be racing with them, but I did start to pull out a bit of a gap. I messed up a little bit here. You can see a little bit annoyed at myself running wide. I was obviously wary of track limits because of course you can get penalties at that corner right there. It's quite easy to run wide and get penalties, so I was trying to avoid that, especially as I knew I'd had the class lead at this point. I was starting to build a gradual gap over Andrew. But then as we go on to the last lap of this race here, we start to see a few more incidents, as I mentioned here. So luckily for us, they happened in front of us. So there was some fluid on the track, and I think two cars would crash, one in the pit wall, I think maybe two in the pit wall, and then two other cars would clash, possibly trying to avoid it. So you can see here, slippery surface flag, and I'm trying to make my way through. There's a car off on the left, there's a car off on the right, and we get the red flag at this point, but we didn't get the checkered flag at all in this first race, so I was a little bit bemused about what exactly happened. But regardless, I think we put in a pretty good race here, quite consistent. Wasn't the quickest, but we put in some decent laps, about half a second quicker than quali, which I was happy about. We of course would win our class thanks to that overtake on Andrew. Andrew actually DNF in the end after 13 laps, so only missing a couple of laps off the end of the race. I think actually only one lap behind me, but he wasn't classified. That would see him unfortunately way outside the top 25, but he was really putting on some good pace throughout that race. He went quicker than he did in quali as well, so I think I was really looking forward to race number 2, but I did know that I could go quicker than I did in quali. I think that was the main thing. So I finished 17th overall. I'd win my class, and that was quite a special one to me. And here I'm just stopping because Gideon September, someone that's been a good friend to us over the last few years racing with the CMMCS, unfortunately had a bit of an incident. He would end up in the pit wall with quite big damage, so I was just checking to see he was okay. I'd come to a stop, and I guess I'd be pretty happy with my performance in that one. Wasn't the quickest, but overall not too bad. So I want to quickly share with you a little bit more information about the race logic that we've been using this year. A great bit of kit that's definitely been helping me get a bit quicker over the season.
Performance Box Touch is not only a super accurate performance meter, it can also be used as a sophisticated predictive lap time, using GPS rather than distance to allow you to accurately compare how your current lap time compares with your fastest, corner by corner. Using a performance box for the first time, VW Classic Championship racer Dan Rose talks us through how he benefited from the system's bright delta speed LEDs on track.
Yeah, a few times you'd go in and basically it would come up green, so you thought, yeah, and then mid-bend it was really sort of pushing on a bit, and you'd come out and you was red, so you had to get the balance right of going in and getting the green going in and the green coming out, so you knew that was the best way through there.
Using a lap timer mode, Dan was able to monitor how modifications to his car affected his performance on track.
Like changing the roll bars, we could see that we're a couple of seconds slower straight away, and that certain areas it's not working. And then when you flick back, it's working and it shows up on the times and also in your sectors, so the predictive lap times really work.
Once again, a massive thank you to Race Logic for supplying me with this kit this year to try and improve. Massively appreciated, and ever since I've started using it, I've actually really seen some improvement, which I'm really happy about. So, time for race number 2 here at Brands Hatch. Now, starting where I finished, which was 17th position. But I wasn't thinking this was going to be easy because, of course, Andrew had got his car fixed and both Ian and James were looking quick as well as Justin, and they were looking to improve on their race 1 result. So I wasn't thinking this was going to be simple by any means here, and had some very quick cars just behind me as well. So needed to be safe here on the start, try not make the same mistake where I'd shift into 5th gear from 2nd, and try and just make the most here of the start and this race. So you can see here, not the best start. We're losing a bit of time to the cars in front, but it's always hard to tell when you're mid-backpack because you don't really see when the front guys start to accelerate because it's obviously such a big grid. So down into paddock hill for the first time. Always a bit cautious into paddock hill on the first lap of the race. I just never really have 100% sort of surety that the tyres are going to be up to temperature, but yeah, once we go over to the Nankang AR1s, which we're going to be going to over soon for the CMCS, that will hopefully help me out in terms of that. So once again, our eyes are forward to try and keep up with Liam just in front of us here. So he of course beat us in that first race and doing a fantastic job in that car, to be fair. It's not quite as quick as the Honda in a straight line, but he does incredible stuff with the car through the corners. He's very, very quick. So you can see the great variety and mix of cars, and we're about mid-pack, which is nice, or maybe slightly towards the back of that mid-pack. And you can see we're quite far ahead of the likes of the Fiestas, but Andrew's made a good start, and I guess I realised, well, I mean, I couldn't really tell within the car, but Andrew was going to be quick after his obviously unfortunate retirement in the first race. I knew he was going to be determined to try and chase through the field. So that is Graham Richardson coming past. I think he DNF'd from the first race, so he was going to be one of the quicker cars that did get past us in this race, which is completely understandable. Slightly missed the braking into Druids, or you could say maybe we were just taking different lines, I'm not too sure, but he was one of the first cars to get past us here. And then we'd have the attention of a few more cars just behind us here. So we'd have Dominic Ryan, we'd have Callum Perfect, and we'd also have Caitlin May as 3 drivers to keep an eye out on our mirror. So here I'm doing my best to keep these guys behind, and also wary. I did start to clock it about midway through this race that Andrew was very quick and starting to gain on me. So down the inside went Dominic Ryan, a similar move to I put on him on the first race, so I guess possibly payback there. You saw what I did in the first race early on, and he's gone and done the same to me. And for some reason in the second race I was really struggling with the tyres. I mentioned in qualifying I was struggling, but race number 2, it was not good. Race number 1 was okay, I could manage it, but race number 2 the tyres were not feeling good at all. And even though in comparison to my class I wasn't doing too badly, as you can see this overtake once more, Dominic Ryan going past and Callum Perfect behind, also trying to make a manoeuvre going across the grass a little bit. But this race here really made me decide I need to switch over to the AR1s as quickly as possible, because I'm not getting to grips with these tyres in race conditions. I think over a longer race you might not be too bad with this as a tyre choice, because it'll be quite consistent over a run, as I think we get lapped here, 2 of the leaders diving through, so I sort of had to jump out of the way because you can see how close they are battling for the win. But yeah, I wanted to switch over to the AR1s as quickly as possible, and I will be doing that in my next CMMCS race, which I think will be at Liddon Hill. So a bit of a tyre degrader, a tyre grater. It's going to destroy the tyres over at Liddon Hill, but it's going to be my next chance with the club, so it'll be the next time I switch over to the AR1s. So once again, pressure from fast cars behind. This is Caitlin May in her new Ford Fiesta, doing a really good job. That car's got slicks on it, but I think she'd only recently got it at this point, so struggled a bit in quali, but then really got quick towards the middle part of the first race and through the second race as well. So she did a really good job. I didn't battle that too hard, as I knew she was going to be quicker. So yeah, she went through, and then my sights were in my mirrors once more to try and defend from Callum, And as mentioned, Andrew's doing a really good job in this race. He actually went quicker than me in the second race here. He got the fastest lap within class, went actually a couple of attempts quicker than I did in the first race, so he really put on some speed in this second one here. But there's the checker flag. We got lapped just at the end here, and I managed to keep Callum behind as well, which was nice. I managed to win my class, but I've got to say it was a great drive from Andrew. From the back of the grid, he set the fastest lap within class, and he just did a really, really good job. So I guess I can count myself lucky that he started at the back, otherwise I probably wouldn't have been able to keep up with him. He was very quick in this second race of the day. Actually, all weekend, to be fair to me, he did a really, really good job. So I was happy with that, a bit exhausted, but I've got to say, quite happy with how the day went, and looking forward to racing on the new tyres in the next CMMCS event. So now we're going to skip forward a week or so to Snetterton. This time we're racing with Christian once more. Knockout Racing. We raced with him at Anglesey. We had a bit of fun with the Turismo X, and today we're racing at Snetterton across the Track Day Trophy and also Turismo X once more. The MSV obviously putting on a really good selection of events with their categories, MSV T I should say, with the Track Day Trophy, Track Day Championship, Turismo X, and also the Enduro car. There's really something for everyone in terms of entry-level motorsport, which I think is really appealing. And to be fair, in the Turismo X, which we'll be racing in here today, or I'll be doing the Turismo X, Christian will be doing the Track Day Trophy. With the Turismo X, you can get some really powerful cars in there. I mean, I'm hoping it will take off through the latter stages of 2022 and into 2023, because there's a possibility that some really special cars could race in that series, so looking forward to that. So this was my first time racing this car around Snetterton, of course, and the first time driving around Snetterton in anything but a Ford KA, so yeah, I was a little bit unsure about how I'd get to grips with the track. It wasn't really my favourite last year. It was probably one of my least favourite tracks in all honesty towards the end of 2021. I mean, we only did it twice, to be honest, but at the same time I wasn't a massive fan of it. I didn't find it a particularly interesting track, you could say. It didn't, I mean, of course there's a challenge there, but there's something about tracks that have sort of dips and hills that make it maybe extra special. Maybe that's why I really like Cadwell Park, and I suppose Brands Hatch you could say as well. And even somewhere like Liddon Hill, it's not just all flat, whereas of course Snetterton is, but it's different characteristics, and that's, I guess, what makes you a good racing driver or a not so good racing driver like myself, is you can adapt to the changes of circuit and so on in the car. Yeah, I wasn't doing a particularly good job out there today, still learning to get to grips with Christian's car fully. To be fair, it's had a lot of changes over the winter, and he's done a really good job to rebuild it and make it quicker, because it most certainly is quicker than it was last year. You can see I'm kind of finding the limit, but the big thing for me is that the differential in this Civic is completely different to the one in my car. Sorry, I should say it hasn't really got a proper differential like my car does. So yeah, that's my excuse, and I wasn't particularly quick, but I can't say I wasn't enjoying it though. Actually, to be fair, Snetterton on this day, it was quite a hot one, but it wasn't too bad actually. I wasn't hating Snetterton, and which kind of felt like the case last year. But yeah, in the Turismo X, while I was racing in, I wasn't really expecting to get in any battles, because whilst our car is in the Class B, we are in a Class C car really, and we're not even really at the top end of the Class C, so it was going to be unlikely that we'd have any battles out here today. In the first race, in which the GoPro failed, unfortunately, I was having a good battle with Rick Skelsey, who's a good friend, races with the CMMCS. He's in that white Civic that you've seen disappear up the road. He did the first race, and Colin Tester did the second race. Colin is just such an incredibly quick driver at club level. He's obviously one of the best out there, to be perfectly honest, and obviously a good person to go to if you want some driver tuition. But yeah, I had a good battle with him in the first race, Rick, until unfortunately he had to retire because of an issue with the car. So that was a bit of a shame for him, but I wasn't doing too badly in that first one until that point. In the second race it was a bit lonely. I was struggling quite a bit just to keep focused, to be perfectly honest, and just keep consistent with the lap times. I was also a bit wary about fuel level in the second race here, because I noticed quite early on that there wasn't much fuel in the car, and unfortunately the GoPro cut off after about half the race as well. So Yeah, it was a bit of an unfortunate one, this race at Snetterton, in terms of capturing footage and also just general pace. Christian did a really good job in the track day trophy, even though he did have his own struggles, but I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. But the big thing for me is that it is just such a learning curve in terms of this car in comparison to my car. It's a Honda Civic from the outside, but it is sort of very different in many ways, which I guess someone like myself, who isn't quick to adapt to racing cars, struggled with a little bit here. So yeah, regardless, really enjoyed these races. It's obviously, especially the ones at Brands Hatch. It was I was up against it a bit, not selecting the right tyres and not really doing a perfect job, but I've got to say, in the moment, I was able to get the overtake done to get past Andrew in that first race and keep it consistent to take the win, and then I was quick enough just about in that second race to grab my class win again, of only 5 cars, I know, but still it's a class win. And then at Snetterton with Christian, it was still a lot of fun getting to grips with the car and getting more track time. Really appreciate it. So massive thank you to Race Logic, to Christian, PBS Brakes, quite a few people to shout out. Massive thanks to all them, and we'll see you in a video soon. Goodbye.